The rain drummed steadily against the windows of Rosita's Cantina, a modest Mexican restaurant nestled between a laundromat and a used bookstore on the outskirts of Albuquerque. The neon sign flickered intermittently, casting an orange glow across the wet asphalt where a few scattered cars sat in the parking lot. Inside, the warm light from paper lanterns created intimate shadows across weathered wooden tables, each one telling its own story through scratches and coffee stains accumulated over decades of service. Nicolas Cage pulled his worn leather jacket tighter around his shoulders as he stepped through the heavy glass door, the small bell above chiming softly to announce his arrival. He had been driving for hours, following back roads and avoiding highways, seeking the kind of anonymity that only small towns could provide. His baseball cap was pulled low over his eyes, and a pair of reading glasses perched on his nose completed the simple disguise that had served him well during these quiet escapes from his public life. The restaurant held perhaps a dozen patrons scattered across its modest interior. An elderly couple shared a plate of enchiladas near the window, their conversation a gentle murmur punctuated by comfortable silences. A construction worker in paint-stained coveralls sat alone at the counter, methodically working his way through a combination plate while scrolling through his phone. In the corner booth, a young mother bounced a restless toddler on her knee while trying to eat with her free hand. Nicolas chose a small table near the back, positioning himself where he could observe the room while remaining relatively inconspicuous. The familiar sounds of a working kitchen drifted from beyond the swinging doors. The sizzle of onions hitting hot oil, the rhythmic chopping of vegetables, the soft percussion of plates being stacked. These sounds had always comforted him, reminding him of simpler times when dining out was about sustenance and community, rather than performance and scrutiny. A waitress emerged from the kitchen, balancing 3 plates along her left arm with practiced ease. She was perhaps 50 years old, with graying black hair pulled back in a neat bun, and kind eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. Her uniform was clean, but showed the wear of countless shifts. Small stains that wouldn't come out despite repeated washing. Fabric slightly faded from commercial laundry detergent. She moved with the efficiency of someone who had been serving others for most of her adult life, delivering meals with genuine smiles and checking on her customers with authentic concern. As she approached his table, Nicolas noticed the small details that spoke to her character. Her shoes were comfortable rather than fashionable, chosen for long hours on her feet. A small silver cross hung from a thin chain around her neck, catching the light when she leaned forward to set down a water glass. Her hands showed the evidence of hard work, calluses from carrying heavy trays, a small burn scar on her wrist from an encounter with a hot plate, nails kept short and practical. "Good evening," she said, her voice carrying a slight accent that suggested Spanish was her first language, though her English was clear and careful. "My name is Elena, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with something to drink?" "Coffee would be perfect," Nicolas replied, keeping his voice deliberately casual. "Black, please." "Of course. And have you had a chance to look at our menu, or would you like a few more minutes?" Nicolas glanced down at the laminated menu, noting the reasonable prices and the mix of traditional Mexican dishes alongside American favorites. "Actually, what would you recommend? Something authentic. Maybe something that reminds you of home." Elena's face brightened at the question, and for a moment her professional demeanor softened into something more personal. "Well, if you're looking for something special, our chef makes the most incredible mole poblano. It's his grandmother's recipe, with 23 different ingredients. It takes him 3 hours to prepare the sauce, but it's..." She paused, searching for the right words. "It's like tasting a piece of history." "That sounds perfect," Nicolas said. "And maybe some of those handmade tortillas I saw coming out of the kitchen?" "Absolutely. I'll get that started for you right away." Elena scribbled the order on her pad, then hesitated for a moment. "You know, you look familiar. Have you been in before?" Nicolas felt the familiar flutter of recognition anxiety, but Elena's expression held only polite curiosity, not the intense scrutiny he had learned to expect. "I don't think so," he said honestly. "But I have one of those faces, I guess. People are always telling me I look like someone they know." Elena laughed gently. "My husband always says the same thing. He swears he went to high school with half the people we meet." She tucked her order pad into her apron pocket. "I'll get that coffee started for you." As she walked away, Nicholas found himself watching her interactions with other customers. She remembered the elderly couple's usual modifications to their order, asking the husband if he wanted extra sauce on the side as always. She complimented the construction worker on his work boots, mentioning that her brother wore the same brand. With the young mother, she produced a small pack of crayons from her apron and a clean paper placemat, transforming it into an impromptu coloring page for the restless child. These weren't the calculated gestures of someone working for tips, Nicholas realized. They were the natural actions of someone who genuinely cared about the people around her, who saw her role as more than just delivering food and collecting payment. In an industry known for high turnover and burnout, Elena had somehow maintained a sense of purpose and connection that elevated every interaction. The coffee arrived in a heavy ceramic mug, the kind that retained heat and felt substantial in your hands. The brew was strong and fresh, with a richness that suggested it had been made with care rather than simply dispensed from an automatic machine. As Nicholas took his first sip, he noticed Eleanor pause at the table next to his, where a man in an expensive suit was becoming increasingly agitated about something. "This is completely unacceptable," the man was saying, his voice rising above the restaurant's ambient noise. "I specifically asked for no onions on my burger, and this is loaded with them. Do you people not understand English?" Elena's posture remained calm and professional, but Nicholas could see the slight tension in her shoulders. "I'm so sorry about that, sir. Let me take it back to the kitchen right away and have them prepare a new one exactly as you ordered." "A new one?" The man scoffed. "Do you have any idea how long I've been waiting already? I have important business to attend to, not time to waste in some roadside dive because your kitchen staff can't follow simple instructions." "I understand your frustration completely," Elena replied evenly. "What I can do is have the chef personally prepare your burger while I speak with my manager about removing the charge from your bill. We absolutely want to make this right for you." The man's companion, a woman with perfectly styled hair and diamond earrings, looked embarrassed by his behavior. "Richard, please. She's trying to help." "Don't tell me to calm down, Margaret. This is exactly the kind of incompetence that's ruining this country. People who can't do basic jobs correctly, probably because they can't even read the orders properly in English." Nicholas felt his jaw tighten at the obvious implications of the man's comments. Elena's face remained composed, but he could see the hurt that flickered briefly in her eyes before she mastered it. Her accent, which Nicolas had found charming and warm, was apparently something this customer saw as a deficiency rather than a mark of her multilingual abilities. "I'll have that new burger out to you in just a few minutes," Elena said quietly, reaching for the offending plate. "Make sure you do," Richard snapped. "And next time, maybe hire staff who actually understand what customers are saying." As Elena walked away with the incorrect order, Nicholas noticed the slight tremor in her hands and the way she paused for just a moment behind the kitchen doors, composing herself before returning to her other tables. The young mother caught Elena's eye and gave her a sympathetic smile, while the construction worker shook his head in disgust at the businessman's behavior. Nicholas had witnessed similar scenes countless times in his years in Hollywood. People using their perceived status or wealth as license to treat service workers as if they were less than human. He had always found it particularly galling, perhaps because his own path to success had been far from guaranteed, and he remembered what it felt like to be dismissed or underestimated. Eleanor returned to his table a few minutes later, carrying a basket of warm tortillas and a small dish of fresh salsa. Her professional smile was back in place, but Nicola could see the effort it required. "Your mole poblano should be ready in about 10 more minutes," she said. "These tortillas just came off the comal, so they're perfect for dipping in the salsa while you wait." "Thank you," Nicholas said, then gestured slightly toward the businessman's table. "I hope that customer's new order works out better." Elena's smile became more genuine, touched with gratitude for his understanding. "Oh, that happens sometimes. Most people are wonderful, but occasionally," she shrugged philosophically. "My grandmother used to say that some people carry their weather with them wherever they go. That gentleman seems to have brought a storm tonight." "Your grandmother sounds wise," Nicholas observed, breaking open one of the tortillas and inhaling the fresh corn aroma that rose from it. "She was. She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 12. Taught me everything I know about cooking, about treating people with respect, about finding joy in simple things." Elena's expression grew wistful. She passed away 2 years ago, but I still hear her voice sometimes, especially when I'm dealing with difficult situations. I'm sorry for your loss, Nicolas said sincerely. It sounds like she left you with some valuable lessons. The most valuable. She used to tell me that our job here isn't just to serve food, it's to serve people. To make sure that everyone who walks through that door feels welcome and important, because you never know what kind of day someone has had or what they might be going through. As if summoned by her words, the kitchen bell chimed, and Elena excused herself to retrieve his order. Nicolas watched her go, thinking about her grandmother's philosophy and how it contrasted with the treatment she had just received from the businessman. In Elena's worldview, every customer deserved respect and kindness, regardless of their background or behavior. It was a beautiful ideal, though clearly one that wasn't always reciprocated. The mole poblano arrived on a heavy ceramic plate. The rich, dark sauce pooled around tender chicken with small portions of rice and refried beans arranged alongside. The aroma was complex and intoxicating. Chocolate and chilies, cumin and cinnamon, with deeper notes that suggested hours of careful preparation. Elena had also brought additional tortillas and a small dish of lime wedges. "This looks incredible," Nicolas said, and meant it. The presentation was simple, but appealing. The kind of honest, substantial meal that promised satisfaction rather than Instagram-worthy artistry. "Chef Luis really outdid himself tonight," Elena replied with obvious pride. "He's been perfecting that recipe for 15 years, ever since he started working here. His family has been making variations of it for generations in Puebla." Nicolas took his first bite and was immediately transported. The sauce was a revelation. Complex without being overwhelming, spicy without being punishing, with layers of flavor that revealed themselves gradually. The chicken was tender and perfectly seasoned, and when wrapped in one of the fresh tortillas with a squeeze of lime, it created a combination that was both sophisticated and deeply comforting. "This is extraordinary," he said, after savoring several more bites. "Chef Luis is an artist." Elena beamed at the compliment. "I'll tell him you said so. He takes such pride in his work. But customers don't always appreciate the time and skill that goes into dishes like this. Most people order the combination plates or the fajitas, which are delicious too, don't get me wrong. But the mole is really something special." "How long have you been working here?" Nicolas asked, genuinely curious about her story. 8 years this December, Elena replied, automatically refilling his coffee cup. "I started right after my youngest daughter graduated high school. Before that, I was mostly doing housekeeping work, but the hours here are better for family life, and I love working with food." "Do you have other children?" Elena's face lit up with maternal pride. "3 daughters. Maria is 26 and works as a nurse at the Children's Hospital. Carmen is 24 and just finished her master's degree in social work. And Sophia is 22 and studying to be a teacher. They're all doing so much better than I ever dreamed possible." "That's wonderful. You must be very proud." "I am," Elena said simply. "My husband and I, we worked multiple jobs for years to make sure they could go to college. He does construction during the day and janitorial work at the community college at night. I worked as a housekeeper for several families and took in alterations on the weekends. But seeing them succeed, knowing they won't have to struggle the way we did, it was worth every sacrifice." Nicolas found himself moved by her matter-of-fact description of years of back-breaking work and sacrifice. There was no self-pity in her voice, no request for sympathy, just quiet satisfaction in what she and her husband had accomplished for their children. "That's incredible dedication," he said. "Your daughters are lucky to have parents who were willing to work so hard for their futures." "We were lucky too," Elena replied. "Those girls motivated us every single day." When you're cleaning other people's houses at 5 in the morning or serving difficult customers late at night, it helps to remember why you're doing it. The businessman's voice rose again from across the restaurant, this time complaining about the temperature of his replacement burger. Nicolas watched Elena's expression tighten slightly, but she excused herself politely to handle the situation. He observed as she approached the table with infinite patience, listened to the man's complaints without interrupting, and offered yet another solution with grace and professionalism. The contrast was striking. Here was a woman who had worked multiple jobs for decades to support her family, who had raised 3 successful daughters while maintaining her dignity and kindness. being berated by someone who apparently felt entitled to perfect service delivered with a smile, regardless of his own behavior. The injustice of it sparked something protective in Nicolas, a desire to somehow balance the scales. Elena returned to his area of the restaurant, and Nicolas could see that the repeated confrontations were wearing on her. Her smile remained in place, but there was fatigue around her eyes that hadn't been there earlier. "Is there anything else I can get for you?" she asked, her voice still warm but carrying the weight of the evening's challenges. "Actually, I was wondering if I could speak with your manager," Nicolas said quietly. Elena's face showed a flash of concern. "Oh, was there something wrong with your meal? I can fix whatever—" No, Nicolas interrupted gently. "The food is perfect. I wanted to speak with them about you, actually, about what an exceptional job you're doing tonight." Relief flooded Elena's features. "That's very kind of you, but you don't need to." "I'd like to," Nicolas said firmly. "Sometimes good work goes unnoticed, and I think your manager should know what kind of employee they have." Elena looked touched, but slightly overwhelmed by the gesture. "Mr. Rodriguez is in the office doing paperwork. I could ask if he has a moment." "That would be perfect." A few minutes later, a stocky man in his 50s emerged from the back of the restaurant. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, and he had the practical demeanor of someone who had worked his way up through every position in the restaurant business. Elena guided him to Nicolas's table with obvious nervousness, unsure of what to expect from this unusual request. "Good evening," the manager said, extending his hand. "I'm Carlos Rodriguez. Elena mentioned you wanted to speak with me?" "I did," Nicolas replied, shaking his hand firmly. "I wanted you to know that Elena has provided absolutely outstanding service tonight. Not just to me, but I've watched her handle some challenging situations with other customers, with incredible grace and professionalism. You should know what an asset she is to your restaurant." Carlos smiled broadly, his pride in his employee evident. "Elena is one of our best. She's been with us for 8 years, and in all that time, I think I can count on one hand the number of customer complaints she's received. Most of the time, people specifically ask to be seated in her section." "I can see why," Nicolas said. "She made my dining experience feel personal and welcoming. That's a rare gift." Elena stood beside the table, clearly embarrassed by the praise but also pleased. "Mr. Carlos began, realizing he hadn't gotten the customer's name. Nicolas hesitated for just a moment. His instinct was always to maintain his anonymity, to avoid the complications that came with recognition. But something about this moment, about Elena's genuine kindness and the manager's obvious respect for her, made him want to be authentic. "Cage," he said simply. "Nicolas Cage." Both Carlos and Elena stared at him for a moment, processing the name. Recognition dawned slowly, and Nicolas watched their expressions change from confusion to surprise, to a kind of starstruck wonder. "The actor?" Carlos asked, his voice dropping to ensure privacy. Nicolas nodded, pulling off his baseball cap and glasses. Without the disguise, his distinctive features were unmistakable. "I hope you don't mind that I tried to blend in. I was just looking for a quiet meal and some normal conversation." Elena's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. "Oh my goodness, I can't believe. I told you that you looked familiar. You provided excellent service to a customer, not a celebrity," Nicolas said gently. "That's exactly the kind of authentic treatment I was hoping for. You made me feel welcome without making me feel like a spectacle." Carlos was clearly struggling to process this development. "Mr. Cage, this is incredible. We've never had anyone famous eat here before. Would you mind, could we possibly get a photo? For the restaurant?" Nicolas looked at Elena, who was still processing the revelation, then back at Carlos. "I'd be happy to take a photo, but only if Elena is comfortable with it. This is her moment of recognition as much as anything else." Yes, of course," Elena stammered. "But I look terrible. My hair is coming out of its bun, and my uniform—" "You look like someone who's been working hard to take care of people," Nicolas interrupted. "That's beautiful." Carlos quickly retrieved his phone while Elena attempted to smooth her hair and straighten her apron. A few other staff members had noticed the commotion and gathered at a respectful distance, whispering among themselves. The businessman who had been complaining earlier was craning his neck to see what was happening, his expression shifting from irritation to curiosity to recognition. "Should I call the other girls over?" Carlos asked, gesturing to the other waitresses who were watching from across the restaurant. "Of course," Nicolas said. "Anyone who wants to be included." Within moments, the entire evening staff had assembled around the table. 2 other waitresses, a busboy, and even Chef Luis, still wearing his apron and looking slightly overwhelmed by the situation. Nicolas positioned himself in the center of the group, with Elena beside him, and Carlos took several photos to ensure everyone got a good shot. "This is unbelievable," whispered Maria, one of the other waitresses. "Wait until I tell my kids that Nicolas Cage ate at our restaurant." "And complimented Elena's service," added Chef Luis proudly. "She's always the one customers remember." As the group began to disperse, returning to their duties with obvious excitement, Nicolas noticed Elena hanging back, still looking somewhat dazed by the evening's turn of events. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. "This wasn't too overwhelming, I hope." I can't believe this is real," Elena said, shaking her head in wonder. "My daughters love your movies. They're never going to believe this actually happened." "Well, you'll have photos to prove it," Nicolas smiled. "And more importantly, you should be proud of the recognition you received tonight. That wasn't about me being here. That was about your exceptional service and the way you treat people." Elena's eyes misted slightly. "Thank you for saying that. It's been a difficult evening with some of the customers, and I was starting to wonder if I was losing my touch." "Far from it," Nicolas assured her. "You have a gift for making people feel valued and welcome. That's not something that can be taught. It comes from who you are as a person." As he prepared to settle his bill, Nicolas found himself thinking about Elena's story, about her years of sacrifice to help her daughters achieve their dreams, about her grandmother's wisdom regarding service and kindness. An idea began to form in his mind, something that had been nagging at him since their conversation about her family's struggles and achievements. "Elena," he said as she returned with his check, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course," she replied, though her voice carried a note of uncertainty. "Your daughters, the one studying to be a teacher, how is she paying for her education?" Elena's expression became more guarded. "Sophia, she has some scholarships and she works part-time at the library. My husband and I help when we can, but..." She trailed off, clearly uncomfortable discussing their financial situation. "But it's still a struggle," Nicolas said gently. Elena nodded reluctantly. "Student loans, mostly. She tries not to let us worry about it, but I know she stays up late sometimes, trying to figure out how to make everything work. She's so close to finishing, just one more semester, but the money is tight," Nicolas finished. "We've been setting aside what we can," Elena said quickly, as if defending her family's efforts. "And Sophia is incredibly responsible. She'll find a way to make it work. She always does." Nicolas nodded thoughtfully, then reached into his wallet. Instead of simply leaving payment for his meal, he pulled out a business card and began writing on the back of it. "I want you to give this to Sophia," he said, handing Elena the card along with sufficient cash to cover his bill and a generous tip. "Tell her to contact my assistant and mention our conversation tonight." Elena looked at the card, confused. "I don't understand. What is this for?" "I have a foundation that provides educational assistance to students who are close to graduation, but facing financial obstacles," Nicolas explained. "It's not widely publicized because I prefer to help people without it becoming a media event. Sophia sounds exactly like the kind of student we exist to support." Elena stared at the card, then looked up at Nicolas with tears beginning to form in her eyes. Are you serious? This isn't some kind of joke." "Completely serious," Nicolas assured her. "Your daughter has worked hard to get where she is, and you and your husband have sacrificed tremendously to support her education. Sometimes people just need a little help to cross the finish line. We couldn't accept charity," Elena said, though her voice wavered with emotion. "We've always made our own way." "This isn't charity," Nicolas said firmly. "This is recognition of merit and hard work. Sophia earned her scholarships through her own efforts, right? She's maintaining her grades while working to support herself." Elena nodded. "She's on the dean's list every semester. Then she's earned this opportunity." "Consider it an investment in a future teacher who will probably spend her career helping other people's children achieve their dreams." Elena held the card with trembling hands, reading and rereading Nicolas's assistant's contact information. "Why would you do this for people you don't even know?" Nicolas thought about his answer carefully, because tonight you showed me what real service looks like. Not just bringing food to tables, but caring about every person who walks through that door. You treated me with kindness and respect before you had any idea who I was. And you maintained that same kindness, even when dealing with customers who didn't deserve it. That tells me everything I need to know about your character and the values you've passed on to your daughters. The tears that had been threatening to fall finally spilled over, and Elena quickly wiped them away with her apron. I don't know what to say. This is life-changing. Sometimes life changes in the most unexpected ways, Nicolas said gently. The important thing is that Sophia deserves this opportunity, and now she'll have it. Several other customers had begun to notice the emotional conversation taking place, and Nicolas was aware that their privacy was becoming increasingly limited. The businessman who had been so rude earlier was openly staring now, clearly trying to overhear their discussion. I should probably head out, Nicolas said, standing and putting his disguise back on. But please, have Sophia contact my assistant tomorrow. She'll know what to do from there. Elena stood as well, still clutching the business card. Mr. Cage, how do I even begin to thank you? By continuing to be exactly who you are, Nicolas replied. By treating every customer with the same kindness you showed me tonight. By knowing that your grandmother would be incredibly proud of the woman you've become and the daughters you've raised. As Nicolas moved toward the door, Elena called after him softly. Mr. Cage? He turned back to face her. Thank you for seeing me, she said simply. For really seeing me. Nicolas smiled, understanding exactly what she meant. Thank you for letting me see you. The rain had stopped while he was inside, and the night air was fresh and cool as Nicolas walked to his car. Behind him, he could hear excited conversation from inside the restaurant as Elena shared her news with her co-workers. Through the window, he could see Carlos patting her on the shoulder, while Chef Luis beamed with vicarious joy. As he drove away, Nicolas reflected on the evening's unexpected turn. He had come to Rosita's cantina seeking anonymity and a simple meal, but instead had found something much more valuable, a reminder of the profound impact that genuine human kindness could have, and an opportunity to pay that kindness forward in a meaningful way. His phone rang as he reached the highway, and he answered without looking at the caller ID. Nicolas, it's Patricia from your office. I hope I'm not calling too late. Not at all, Patricia. What can I do for you? I just wanted to confirm your schedule for tomorrow. You have the script reading at 10, lunch with the producers at 1, and... Actually, Patricia, I need you to clear some time tomorrow morning. I'm going to be sending you information about a student who needs assistance with educational funding. Her name is Sophia, and her mother Elena will be calling to set up the process. Of course. Should I prepare the standard documentation for the foundation review? Yes, but fast-track this one. She's in her final semester, so timing is crucial. And Patricia, yes? Make sure she understands that this is based on merit, not charity. She's earned this opportunity through her own hard work and dedication. Understood. Is there anything else specific I should know about this case? Nicolas thought about Elena's story, about her years of sacrifice and her unwavering kindness even in the face of disrespect. Just that sometimes the most deserving people are the ones who would never ask for help themselves. After ending the call, Nicolas continued driving through the quiet streets of Albuquerque, past closed shops and empty parking lots, thinking about the randomness of human connection. If he had chosen a different restaurant, or if Elena had been working a different shift, their paths would never have crossed. But something had brought them together at exactly the right moment, creating an opportunity for genuine human kindness to flow in both directions. His thoughts were interrupted by the buzz of a text message. Pulling over safely, he checked his phone and found a message from Carlos Rodriguez, along with several photos from the evening. Mr. Cage, thank you again for visiting our restaurant tonight and for recognizing Elena's exceptional service. But mostly, thank you for whatever you said to her afterward. She's been crying happy tears for 20 minutes and keeps saying her life just changed forever. I don't know what you did, but I've never seen her so overcome with joy and gratitude. You've made more than just her night. You've touched our whole restaurant family. We hope you'll come back anytime you're in Albuquerque. Nicolas smiled at the message, then scrolled through the photos Carlos had taken. In each one, Elena's genuine joy was evident, her face radiant with the kind of happiness that comes from unexpected blessings and recognized worth. But what struck him most was his own expression in the photos. Relaxed and genuinely content in a way that had become rare in his public appearances. He realized that Elena had given him something as valuable as what he had offered her. In treating him as simply another customer deserving of respect and kindness, she had allowed him to remember what it felt like to be seen as a person rather than a celebrity. Her authentic warmth had created space for authentic connection, something increasingly precious in his carefully managed public life. The next morning, Nicolas was in his hotel room reading scripts when Patricia called. "Nicolas, I just got off the phone with Elena Martinez. She was almost too nervous to call, but when I explained that you had asked her daughter to contact us, she broke down crying again. Apparently, Sophia initially didn't believe her mother's story about meeting you until she saw the photos." "How did the conversation go?" Nicolas asked, setting aside his script. "Sophia is exactly the kind of student our foundation exists to help. She's maintained a 3.8 GPA while working 20 hours a week at the university library. She's student teaching this semester while taking her final courses, and she's already received a job offer from an elementary school in a low-income area. Her only obstacle is a shortfall of about $8,000 for her final semester's expenses." "That's nothing," Nicolas said immediately. "Approve the full amount, plus a little extra for living expenses so she can focus on her student teaching without worrying about work." "Already done," Patricia replied with satisfaction. "I also took the liberty of researching the school that offered her a position. It's in one of Albuquerque's most challenging districts, serving primarily immigrant families. She's going to be exactly where she can do the most good." Nicolas felt a deep sense of satisfaction at this news. "Perfect. And Patricia, make sure the paperwork reflects that this is merit-based assistance, not need-based charity. I want Sophia to understand that she's earned this support through her own achievements and commitment." "Absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like me to arrange regarding this case?" Nicolas thought for a moment. "Actually, yes. Find out when Sophia graduates and see if there's a ceremony. I'd like to attend if possible, assuming the family would be comfortable with that. I'll look into it discreetly." Elena mentioned that Sophia's graduation is planned for December, so we have some time to coordinate. After ending the call, Nicolas found himself unable to concentrate on the scripts in front of him. Instead, he kept thinking about Elena's description of her daughter's career choice, choosing to work in a challenging school district, dedicating herself to serving children from immigrant families much like her own mother's background. It was a beautiful continuation of the generational cycle of service and sacrifice that Elena had described. 3 weeks later, Nicolas received another message from Carlos Rodriguez, this time with a photo that made his heart swell with pride. It showed Sofia Martinez holding a check from the foundation, flanked by her parents and sisters. Elena was crying tears of joy while her husband, a weathered man in work clothes, stood with his arm around his daughter's shoulders, his expression a mixture of pride and amazement. The accompanying message read, "Mr. Cage, Sophia wanted you to know that she received the Foundation's assistance and that it means she can complete her education without additional loans. She also wanted you to know that she plans to dedicate her teaching career to helping children who face the same challenges she did growing up. Elena says to tell you that her grandmother would have called you an angel, but that she knows you're just a good man who chose to see the best in people. Our whole family at Rosita's Cantina will never forget your kindness." Nicolas saved the photo to his phone and found himself returning to it frequently over the following days. There was something profoundly moving about seeing the tangible impact of a single evening's chance encounter. What had begun as a simple desire for anonymity and authentic Mexican food had somehow transformed into a moment that would alter the trajectory of a young woman's life and, through her future students, potentially touch hundreds of other lives as well. A month later, Nicolas was back in Los Angeles, wrapped up in the demands of a new film project, when he received an unexpected package at his office. Inside was a handwritten letter on simple stationery, along with a small wrapped gift. "Dear Mr. Cage," the letter began in careful, precise handwriting. "My name is Sofia Martinez, and I am the daughter of Elena Martinez, who served you at Rosita's Cantina in Albuquerque. I hope you remember meeting my mother and the incredible kindness you showed our family. I wanted to write to thank you personally for the educational assistance your foundation provided. Because of your generosity, I was able to complete my final semester without the financial stress that had been keeping me awake at night. I graduated summa cum laude last week and will begin teaching 3rd grade at Esperanza Elementary School next month. But more than the financial support, I wanted to thank you for the way you treated my mother that evening. She told me how you saw her not just as a waitress, but as a person with a story worth hearing and a family worth investing in. She said you made her feel valued and respected in a way that reminded her why she takes pride in her work, even when dealing with difficult customers. My mother has spent her entire adult life serving others, first cleaning houses and taking in sewing to help pay for our educations, then working at the restaurant where she continues to make every customer feel welcome and important. She never complains about difficult days or rude customers because she says that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of how they treat her in return. What you may not know is that your recognition of her character and your investment in our family's future has had an impact far beyond just helping me finish school. My mother has always been proud of her work, but sometimes the daily challenges can wear down even the strongest spirits. Your acknowledgement of her excellence reminded her, and all of us, that what she does matters, that the way she treats people makes a real difference in the world. I have enclosed a small gift that I hope will serve as a reminder of the evening when a simple dinner became a life-changing encounter. It was made by my grandmother before she passed away, and my mother insisted that I share it with you as a token of our family's eternal gratitude. Please know that your kindness will continue to impact lives for years to come. Every child I teach will benefit from the education I was able to complete because of your foundation's support. And I promise to treat each of them with the same dignity and respect that you showed my mother. To see them as individuals with unlimited potential rather than just names on a roster. Thank you for reminding our family that there are still good people in the world who choose to use their blessings to lift others up. You have earned a permanent place in our prayers and our hearts. With deepest gratitude and respect, Sofia Martinez, 3rd grade teacher, Esperanza Elementary School. Nicolas carefully unwrapped the small gift that had accompanied the letter. Inside was a hand-embroidered bookmark featuring an intricate pattern of flowers and vines in vibrant blues and golds. The needlework was exquisite, clearly the product of countless hours of patient, skilled labor. At the bottom, in tiny, perfect stitches, were the words, "Para recordar que la bondad siempre regresa," to remember that kindness always returns. Nicolas held the bookmark carefully, running his fingers over the delicate embroidery. He could imagine Elena's grandmother working on it by lamplight, perhaps while her granddaughter did homework at the same kitchen table, creating something beautiful with her hands while instilling values of hard work and perseverance through her example. The letter and gift moved him more deeply than any professional accolade he had ever received. Here was tangible proof that a single moment of human connection, a simple recognition of another person's worth, could create ripples that extended far beyond anything he had imagined when he walked into that modest restaurant seeking only a quiet meal. Over the following months, Nicolas found himself carrying Sofia's bookmark in whatever book he was reading, using it not just as a practical tool, but as a reminder of the evening that had taught him as much as he had given. Whenever he encountered service workers in restaurants, hotels, or shops, he made a conscious effort to really see them as individuals, to acknowledge their humanity with the same attention Elena had shown him. The ripple effects continued to unfold in unexpected ways. During a film shoot in New Mexico 6 months later, Nicolas made a point of returning to Rosita's cantina. Elena was there, and her face lit up with genuine joy when she recognized him, even with his latest attempt at disguise. "Mr. Cage!" she exclaimed, abandoning her usual professional reserve to give him a warm hug. "We never expected to see you again. I was in the area and couldn't resist coming back for more of that incredible mole poblano," Nicolas said, settling into the same table he had occupied during his first visit. "Chef Luis has been perfecting the recipe even more since you were here," Elena said proudly. He says knowing that Nicolas Cage appreciated his cooking has motivated him to reach even higher standards. As Elena served him, Nicolas noticed positive changes throughout the restaurant. The staff seemed more confident, the atmosphere more vibrant. Carlos Rodriguez explained later that having a celebrity endorsement, even an unofficial one, had brought more customers and created a sense of pride among the workers that elevated everyone's performance. But the biggest change has been in Elena herself, Carlos confided. She's always been excellent, but since that night you recognized her service, she's been like a different person, more confident, more vocal about the value of what we do here. She started training our newer staff members, teaching them that serving people is honorable work that deserves to be done with dignity and pride. During this second visit, Nicolas met Elena's husband, Roberto, who had stopped by after finishing his construction job. He was a quiet, sturdy man with calloused hands and intelligent eyes, clearly exhausted from a long day of physical labor, but lighting up when Elena introduced him to the customer who had changed their family's trajectory. "I cannot find words in English or Spanish big enough to thank you," Roberto said, his accent heavier than his wife's, but his sincerity unmistakable. "What you did for Sofia, for our family, it is more than money. You gave us hope. You showed us that good people exist who see the value in families like ours." "Your family's value was already there," Nicolas replied. "I just had the privilege of recognizing it." Elena brought out her phone to show Nicolas recent photos of Sofia in her classroom, surrounded by eager third graders. The young teacher bore a strong resemblance to her mother, with the same kind eyes and warm smile that made people feel welcomed and valued. "She loves her job," Elena said, scrolling through picture after picture of classroom activities, art projects, and field trips. "The principal says she's a natural teacher, that the children respond to her immediately. She says it's because she learned from watching me serve customers that every person deserves to be treated as important and special." Nicolas studied the photos, seeing Sofia's genuine engagement with her students. In one picture, she was kneeling beside a small boy who was struggling with a reading assignment, her posture conveying patience and encouragement. In another, she was laughing with a group of girls who were showing her their drawings, treating their artwork with the same respect she might give to a professional gallery exhibition. "She's going to touch so many lives," Nicolas observed. "Those children are lucky to have a teacher who understands the power of seeing people's potential." Elena nodded, her maternal pride evident. "She tells me that every day she tries to remember what her grandmother taught us about service and what you showed us about recognition. She says she looks for the quiet children, the ones who might be overlooked, and makes sure they know they matter." As the evening wound down, Nicolas prepared to leave, but Elena stopped him with a gentle touch on his arm. "Mr. Cage, I have something I want to share with you," she said, her voice taking on a more serious tone. "That night after you left, after we realized what you had done for Sofia, I went home and told my husband that I had met an angel disguised as a customer." Nicolas started to protest the characterization, but Elena held up her hand. "Please let me finish. Roberto said that maybe you weren't an angel, but that you were definitely someone who had learned to see with an angel's eyes. Someone who could look past appearances and circumstances to see the true worth of a person." She paused, composing her thoughts carefully. "I have been thinking about this for months, about what made that night so special, and I realized that it wasn't just your generosity to Sofia, though that changed our lives forever. It was the way you saw me, really saw me, as a complete person with a history and a family and dreams, not just as someone whose job was to bring you food." Elena's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "In my 8 years working here, I have served thousands of customers. Most are kind, some are difficult, but very few have ever looked at me the way you did that night, with genuine interest in who I am as a human being. You asked about my family not to make conversation, but because you really wanted to know. You listened to my answers not to be polite, but because you found my story worth hearing." Nicolas felt his own throat tighten with emotion at her words. "What you taught me," Elena continued, "is that the greatest gift we can give another person is the gift of being truly seen and valued. You didn't just help my daughter with money. You helped our whole family remember our own worth. And that lesson has changed how I see my own work and how I treat every customer who walks through that door." She smiled through her tears. "So thank you, not just for Sofia's education, but for reminding me that what I do here matters. That serving people with kindness and respect is important work, worthy of pride. You helped me see myself through an angel's eyes too." Nicolas was deeply moved by Elena's reflection. What she was describing was exactly the reciprocal nature of authentic human connection. How truly seeing and valuing another person not only affirms their worth, but also reveals something precious about our own capacity for goodness. "Elena," he said quietly, You had that angel's vision long before we met. You were already treating every customer with dignity and kindness, already seeing the worth in people regardless of how they treated you. I just had the good fortune to be on the receiving end of your gift for genuine service." As Nicolas drove away from Rosita's cantina that evening, he reflected on how the simple act of recognizing another person's excellence had created a continuing cycle of positive impact. Elena's renewed confidence in her work had influenced her training of other staff members. Sophia's education had enabled her to become the kind of teacher who would lift up hundreds of children throughout her career. And the story of that night had apparently spread throughout the local community, creating a reputation for the restaurant as a place where every customer was treated as family. But perhaps most importantly, Nicolas realized that the encounter had changed him as well. Elena's example of finding dignity in service, of maintaining kindness even in the face of rudeness, of seeing each person as worthy of respect and attention, had become a model he tried to emulate in his own interactions. The bookmark Sophia had sent him served as a daily reminder that kindness always returns, often in ways we never could have anticipated. 2 years later, Nicolas received an invitation that brought the story full circle. Sofia Martinez was getting married, and she and her fiancé, a fellow teacher she had met at a professional development conference, wanted to invite him to their wedding celebration. "I know it's presumptuous to invite someone I've never actually met," Sophia wrote in her letter, "but you have been such an important part of our family's story that it wouldn't feel complete to celebrate this milestone without acknowledging your role in making it possible. If you're able to attend, we would be honored by your presence. If not, please know that you will be in our thoughts and prayers as we begin this new chapter." Nicolas was touched by the invitation and, checking his schedule, found that he would indeed be available for the small ceremony planned at a community center in Albuquerque. He replied that he would be delighted to attend, asking only that his presence not become a distraction from the couple's special day. The wedding was exactly what Nicolas had expected: warm, intimate, and filled with the kind of genuine joy that comes from people who understand the value of love and commitment. Sophia looked radiant in a simple but elegant dress that had been altered by her mother with the same care Elena brought to all her work. Her new husband, Miguel, was a quiet, earnest young man who taught 5th grade at a school in the same district where Sophia worked. Elena and Roberto glowed with parental pride, surrounded by their other daughters and a growing collection of grandchildren who treated Nicolas with the comfortable acceptance that children reserve for adults who genuinely like and respect them. The wedding feast featured dishes prepared by Chef Luis from Rosita's cantina, including the mole poblano that had started everything. During the reception, Sophia asked Nicolas to dance, and as they moved slowly to a traditional Mexican ballad, she shared what her students had taught her about the ripple effects of kindness. "You should know," she said, "that I tell my students every year about the importance of really seeing people, of recognizing that everyone has a story worth knowing. I don't tell them about the money you provided for my education, but I do tell them about how a stranger treated my mother with such respect and kindness that it reminded our whole family of our own worth." Nicolas was curious about how her young students responded to such concepts. "They understand it better than adults sometimes," Sophia continued. "Children are naturally good at seeing each other as individuals rather than categories. When I encourage them to notice the classmate who sits alone at lunch, or to include the student who speaks differently, or to appreciate the custodian who keeps their classroom clean, they respond immediately. They seem to know instinctively that everyone wants to be seen and valued." As the dance ended, Sophia looked up at Nicolas with her mother's kind eyes. "Thank you for teaching me that lesson by example," she said simply. "Every child I teach will carry a piece of that kindness forward into their own lives." The evening concluded with Carlos Rodriguez presenting Nicolas with a plaque declaring him an honorary member of the Rosita's Cantina family, a gesture that meant more to him than most of his professional awards. As he prepared to leave, Elena approached him one final time. "Mr. Cage," she said, "I have watched you tonight with my family, with my daughter's new husband, with our friends and neighbors. You have the same gift now that you recognized in me that first night. The ability to make every person you meet feel important and valued. That is not something money can buy or fame can teach. It comes from understanding that we are all connected, that every person's story matters." She smiled, the expression carrying all the warmth and wisdom he remembered from their first encounter. "My grandmother would say that you have learned to carry good weather with you wherever you go, and that is the greatest gift any of us can give to the world." As Nicolas drove through the desert night, heading back to his hotel and then onto his next film project, he carried with him the satisfaction of a story completed but not ended. The kindness that had begun with Elena's authentic service had multiplied and spread through Sophia's teaching, through the other staff members Elena had trained, through the hundreds of children who would be influenced by Sophia's approach to education, and through his own renewed commitment to seeing and valuing every person he encountered. The embroidered bookmark remained in his current book, its message as relevant as ever: kindness always returns. But Nicolas now understood that the return often comes in forms we never expected, in connections we never planned, in the quiet satisfaction of knowing that a single moment of authentic human recognition can create waves of positive impact that continue long after the initial encounter is forgotten by most, but treasured by those whose lives it touched. Years later, when interviewers asked Nicolas about his most meaningful experiences, he rarely mentioned the elaborate premieres or celebrity encounters that filled most actors' anecdotes. Instead, he would think about a rainy evening in a modest Mexican restaurant, where a disguised movie star and a hard-working waitress had reminded each other of their shared humanity, creating a moment of connection that had enriched far more lives than either of them had imagined possible. The lesson was elegantly simple and endlessly profound. When we choose to truly see another person, to recognize their worth, acknowledge their story, and treat them with genuine respect, we create the possibility for transformation that extends far beyond the boundaries of that single encounter. In a world often characterized by superficial interactions and transactional relationships, the decision to offer authentic recognition and kindness becomes a revolutionary act, one that affirms our fundamental interconnectedness and our shared capacity for goodness. Elena's grandmother had been right. We do carry our weather with us wherever we go. The choice between bringing storms or sunshine to our encounters with others is one that we make countless times each day, often without realizing the profound impact those choices can have on the lives we touch and the legacy we leave behind. In the end, Nicolas learned the most important performance of his life wasn't on any movie screen, but in the simple act of treating a restaurant server with the dignity and recognition she deserved, creating a moment of authentic human connection that had rippled outward to touch hundreds of lives and would continue to do so for generations to come. The story of that evening had become more than just a memory. It had become a reminder that every person we encounter carries within them unlimited potential for goodness, and that our recognition of that potential can be the catalyst that helps them recognize it in themselves. Sometimes, the most profound gifts we can offer each other are not material objects or financial assistance, but the simple acknowledgement that we see each other as fully realized human beings, worthy of respect, kindness, and authentic attention. And sometimes, when we least expect it, a routine dinner at a neighborhood restaurant can become the beginning of a story that changes multiple lives forever, reminding us that ordinary moments hold extraordinary possibilities when we approach them with open hearts and the willingness to truly see the people around us. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales, and share your own experiences with unexpected kindness in the comments below. Sometimes the most ordinary moments can become the most extraordinary gifts we give each other. What act of kindness has changed your life? We'd love to hear your story.